would all join me for a moment of silence. If you would all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Cherry, could I please get roll call?
Erica Connor.
Here.
Harry DeMore.
Here.
Joel Frederick.
Here.
Andy Mankey.
Here.
Art Schneider.
Here.
Craig Bird.
Here.
Jeff Fokel.
Here.
Bill Warner.
Here.
Terry Winchowski here.
This is an open meeting, and it has been noted as such. We are going to begin with citizens' comments. Jeff and I both have a number of email submitted citizens' comments, and we will start with those first. We'll read those aloud, and then we will move into live citizens' comments. I will call you up. Citizens' comments are limited to 2 minutes apiece, and you will be timed and be given a warning. As a reminder, if what you are here to share has already been said and read in the citizens' comments, feel free to come to the microphone and simply echo in agreement. You don't have to take the whole 2 minutes if you would not like, because we do have a time limit to get them done in. So we will get started, and Jeff, you can get going.
The first comment is from Amy Kirschnick. As a parent, I believe that it is critical for kids to be in school. It is important for them to not be isolated at home. In-person instruction and socialization is so important for the kids' well-being. Please consider the mental aspect as much as the health aspect. I can't stress enough how strongly we want face-to-face education to continue. Thank you for your consideration. This is from Margie Canfield. Hi, thank you for all of your hard work to keep us open. As it stands now, students who are quarantined, symptoms or not, have the same amount of days to make up their homework. This leads to some of the non-symptomatic students who, in a normal year, would be in class to blow off their assignments. I would appreciate a way for those who are symptomatic and quarantined to be able to be distinguished from those who are asymptomatic and should be doing their work on time. The amount of time it takes us teachers to grade late or quarantine, etc. work is unbelievable. Again, thanks for all you are doing to keep us open and allowing our kids the experience of extracurricular activities and face-to-face learning. Margie Canfield. This is from Sherry Decker. I really feel that in-person learning is much more beneficial to my children, and I know my children feel the same way. While virtual still has a similar structure or schedule to in-person learning has much more of an impact on the children. Classrooms have life and enjoyment to them. When they are virtual, that life disappears. From what I have seen, the precautions taken at MASD are working in limiting cases. As I have been told, most cases come from events outside of school and not inside the actual buildings. Even though I'm sure most children wouldn't admit it, most love going to school as they can see friends, be social, make connections, and learn in a better way than what it would be if we went virtual. The holidays are always a complex thing to think about, and I would always just like to thank everyone in the district for working through these rough times. This is from Susan Hoffman. Good evening. I am a first grade teacher in the district and wanted to voice my opinion on in-person learning. I feel that those that are opposed to us staying in school are voicing their opinion very loudly. However, that is not the case for all of us. I'm 100% in favor of in-person learning, as many of my coworkers are, especially at the elementary level. I believe we are doing our students an injustice if we take that away from them. Due to the stringent measures the district has imposed to keep everyone safe, i.e. masks, plexiglass, and cleaning, I am very comfortable being in school. According to the World Health Association and the CDC, kids under the age of 10 are less likely to contract the virus, and if they do, they have less symptoms that last a shorter amount of time, and they are less likely than adults to pass the virus. I know we are following Waukesha County Health guidelines and that of the CDC. Parents are sending their kids because they are comfortable with what the district is doing, so we owe it to them to stay with in-person teaching, not to mention the number of students that will fall behind in their academic achievement or worse. Some districts throughout the country are even lessening their quarantine due to the fact that if we are masking and taking other precautions, there is no need for lengthy quarantines. But that is another discussion. In short, keep our kids in school. Thank you for all you do, Sue Hoffman. This is from Jennifer Schroeder. CDC Director Robert Redfield on November 19th, 2020 in an interview on COVID in schools. Quote, "The truth is, for kids K through 12, one of the safest places they can be from our perspective is to remain in school. Today, there is extensive data that we've gathered over the past 2 to 3 months to confirm that K through 12 can operate with face-to-face learning, and they can do it safely and they can do it responsibly. This has been a very challenging year for everyone, to say the least. We have all sacrificed and made provisions to put our best foot forward and live our lives. The schools, teachers, and staff have all worked hard to make in-person learning possible. They have all done a great job. Please don't take that in-person learning away from our children. They need to be in school not just for their education, but for their mental health too." This is from Catherine Marari. As the parents of a Mukwonago High School student, it is with mixed feelings that we write to you. While we recognize the value of in-person classes, we also cannot ignore the recent surge in the area of COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. If local hospitals do not have room to treat COVID and non-COVID patients alike, then we will all be contributing to needless suffering and deaths during a time when alternatives exist. As the holidays approach, we encourage our schools to go virtual between November 30th and mid-January. This will allow a safer return to in-person classes after the holidays. We want to emphasize a mid-January return because this will allow 2 weeks post-New Year's, a time when some may be less inclined to carefully adhere to CDC precautions. In gratitude for all you do for our students and the community, Catherine and John Marari. This is from Michelle Kutcher. I am writing to voice my support for continued full-time face-to-face learning. Face-to-face learning is crucial to maintaining the mental health and well-being of our children. I appreciate the effort and hard work that has kept them attending school in person up to this point. Please continue to provide this option if at all possible. Thank you, Michelle Kutcher. This is from Micah Parrish. MASD board members, first of all, I would like to offer our sincere thankfulness to the board members for the decisive actions that are placing our children's safety as top priority. With this in mind, I would like to ask the board to consider going virtual post-Thanksgiving through mid-January. As we understand the COVID-19 results in many children displaying asymptomatic symptoms, they do run the risk of carrying this virus to gatherings for the holidays. With children virtually learning, parents have the possibility to quarantine before the holidays and thus offer a safer holiday to the grandparents. Furthermore, by resuming mid-January, this would allow the students to self-isolate after the holidays before resuming in-person classes, ultimately lowering risks. We are hoping the district will see this as a proactive measure to balance the holidays for families and in-person learning. I fear without action such as this, we will see a large spike in cases as families will still gather regardless. Thank you for your consideration of my request, Micah Parrish. This is from Corey Zarconi. Good evening. We are parents of 3 children in the district, 1 in high school, middle school, and elementary school. Thank you for all that you have done thus far to offer 5-day-a-week in-person instruction and extracurricular activities for our children. Having our children in school has greatly improved the overall health and well-being of our family as a whole. Despite the rapid increase of positive cases in Waukesha County, we urge you to not preemptively change our in-person learning model to hybrid or virtual in anticipation of an increase in cases due to the holidays. As a district, we have demonstrated since September 1st that we can operate safely and responsibly while providing in-person 5-day-per-week instruction. Although our high school temporarily switched to virtual learning due to a sudden spike in cases, Since that time, our MASD dashboard numbers have shown little cause for concern. A switch to hybrid or virtual could be counterproductive, as it will likely lead to our children spending more time in uncontrolled environments for childcare, study groups, and social outlets. CDC Director Dr. Robert Redfield declared last week that, quote, "For kids K through 12, one of the safest places they can be is in school," unquote. Additionally, the CDC is urging decision makers to follow the data specific to their community and not make decisions based on emotion. Please continue to offer in-person 5-day-per-week instruction for our children, and if data deems it necessary, make adjustments on a school-by-school basis. Thank you for your time. Corey Zarconi. This is an email from Susan Carmen. Dear Mukwonago School Board, I would like to offer my strong support for continuing in-person learning. I have found our 4 children to be happier and more productive while attending in-person learning. I also believe having kids in school is better for their overall mental and academic well-being. I've been volunteering since the beginning of the school year, helping the district nurse with phone calls. This experience has given me the following insights that further my strong belief that in-person learning is the best for our community. 1, we are finding the transmission within our schools to be very low. The local data tells us that school is one of the safest places for kids to be, and this was confirmed by the director of CDC, Robert Redfield, this week. Number 2, staffing our hospitals is one of the biggest risks of our community. When kids aren't in school, it can affect the availability of their healthcare worker parents because they have to stay home to be with their children. I would like to thank our administration, staff, teachers, health team, and the board for their tireless efforts. I am proud to be a part of the district and community that continues to recognize the importance of in-person learning. Sincerely, Susan Carmen, RN, MSN, MBA. This is from Jennifer Robideau. Hi, to whom it may concern, I would like to express my concerns regarding our children and continuing their in-person versus virtual education. We are strong believers in the value of in-person education. We are also strong believers in the CDC's recommendation that children be allowed to continue their education at school. We do not believe that our children are at greater risk in school than they would be if they remained at home. We were told that scientific data and CDC analysis of this data was the reason for the initial learn-at-home experience that happened at the end of the previous school year. Well, now it seems that a lot has been learned about the risks of this virus, and that the CDC and the rest of the world, for that matter, seem to agree that certain current scientific data strongly shows that our children can safely participate in an in-person educational experience. Please do not take away our children's desire and right to quality education, quality educational experience. Please don't let adult politics interfere with the lives of our children. Thank you. It's from Nicole Bruckner. My children attending Rolling Hills, and they have done an incredible job at keeping the children as safe as possible from the spread of COVID. Any cases or possible cases are coming from the activities outside of school. They are not catching it at school. Children need to be in school at this very important stage in their life, and I hope you vote to keep the schools open in December. Focus on the information you have of schools in our community, not cases across the state. Thank you, Nicole Bruckner. This is from Terry Helminski. Please keep the schools open. My kids need the structure of the classroom. This is from Danielle Bauman. Hello, please keep the kids in school. They do so much better in the classroom than at home. They are required to wear masks, so there should be no reason they can't stay in school. Thank you. This is from Christine Heather Youngbluth. Hello, I just want to say that I am thankful that we have had this much in-person learning this year. As a parent who has to homeschool during a 2-week period due to quarantine, I also want to mention the giant strain this puts on families. I have a full-time job, and trying to keep all the plates in the air, so to speak, is exhausting. The kids are not getting the same education when they are at home, and I am not able to do my job well, which is not a great situation either. My hope is that you will not make assumptions about what may or may not happen over the holidays and continue to educate the kids in person. as that is what is best for them. On a side note, I would like to know what the plan is if a child has had the virus. If they are exposed, are they able to stay in school if they already had it? Please let me know if there is an answer to that. Thank you, Christy Youngbluth. From Aaron Fisco, hello. I understand the board is meeting tonight to determine the school plan for the next little while. Wanted to share my thoughts on how much the kids get from the in-person learning and interacting with their friends and teachers. My son was quarantined recently due to someone on his bus with a positive case, and he really missed school, his teachers and friends. We found a way to get the work done, but overall, he just missed school, which was great to hear. And I totally get that there are processes and procedures in place for this unprecedented time, and I think the school has been handling everything so great. Hopefully it is determined that everyone can stay safe and healthy while still getting education in person. Thank you for your time, Aaron. From Laura Sobek, dear Mukwonago School Board, my family and I want to thank you for offering virtual learning for students in this school district during this pandemic. I have 2 children participating in virtual learning in elementary and middle school. I cannot say enough how pleased we are with the virtual learning environment. The teachers are excellent, offering live classes and instruction several times per day, keeping the kids connected, and the teachers communicate well with their parents. I know my kids are staying current per day, keeping with their education. Again, we are thankful for the virtual option. I know my kids are safe, their schooling is consistent and not disrupted with quarantines, and they are mask-free at home. This makes a big difference. Thanks again, Laura. This is from Stephen Brogley. Hello, I have 2 kids who are currently face-to-face at Prairie View. We're strongly considering virtual learning up to the start of school because we didn't want our kids wearing a mask all day. We are reassured, at least at the elementary level, that the school would be as normal as they remember for the most part. I would have to say that the teachers and staff at our school are doing the best they can to make that happen. Masks aside, I am so happy that the kids are in school where they belong. I have heard countless stories of bad experiences of the virtual program for our district. The families that chose face-to-face learning expect the schools to stay open. This whole year, everyone says, follow the science. Well, take what you want from the CDC because they have flip-flopped so many times. But as of last week, CDC Director Robert Redfield stated that schools are the safest place for kids to be and that virus isn't spreading from school. This is the whole quote from the Fox News website. Quote, the infections that we've identified in schools when they've been evaluated were not acquired in schools. They were actually acquired in the community and in the household, he explained, citing Task Force Coordinator Dr. Deborah L. Burks, who believes Americans are getting comfortable in removing protective face masks. The truth is, for kids K through 12, one of the safest places they can be from our perspective is to remain in school. And it's really important that following the data, making sure we don't make emotional decisions about what to close and what not to close, Redfield continued. I'm here to say clearly the data strongly supports that K through 12 schools as well as institutes of higher learning really are not where we're having our challenges, unquote. This was already known for Waukesha County and our district because it was in the October 29th newsletter and letter from County Executive Paul Farrell. There have been 23,134 total cases in Waukesha County with 177 deaths. Currently, there is 7,636 active cases in the county with a population of over 400,000. Between the ages of 0 to 19, there have been 3,828 total cases with 0 deaths. In fact, 0 deaths under the age of 40 and only 2 deaths under the age of 49. Bottom line, there isn't any reason schools can't remain open. There are no facts that support that, and kids learn better in person. The parents who are sending kids to school want that to remain, and I would think most teachers in the building want it to remain face-to-face. Otherwise, they would have chosen a different option. You have to look at more than the rapid increase of positive cases in Waukesha County as stated in last week's newsletter and look at the whole picture. I hope there will be real thought-out discussion on this topic and not just pushed through quickly to a vote tonight.
Dear school board members, first and foremost, I would like to thank you. I understand that the end of the last school year and the beginning of the school year has been impossibly difficult. I have nothing I've been nothing but impressed with the measures taken to get our kids back in the classroom this fall and offer multiple learning options to all of our MASD families. The extra effort by the administration, teachers, and custodial staff have not gone unnoticed, and I could not be more appreciative of you all. With that being said, my family is taking COVID-19 very seriously, and as a parent of both a middle schooler and a high schooler, I'm asking you to please continue the face-to-face learning option. Face-to-face learning not only provides a well-structured learning environment, but is essential to my students' mental health. Speaking personally, virtual learning was devastating to both of my children's academic performance as well as their mental well-being. Faced with virtual learning throughout the spring, their grades dropped and learning suffered for them, causing mental health issues that had escalated to professionals. Staying in school is paramount for their mental health and critical for their academic success. In our school district, the cases of COVID-19 are very low. This is a testament to everyone working so hard in our school system, as well as the families taking this matter very seriously. I ask that you please consider keeping our kids learning face-to-face, as it is vitally important not only to their academic success, but also to their mental health. Thank you so much for all that you've done and continue to do for our children. Hello, on Saturday the 14th, I emailed Superintendent McNulty regarding his letter sent out on the 13th. As he's done before, he responded personally. This is my response that follows. Mr. McNulty, thank you for the update you provided on Friday. Anyone keeping an eye on the virus numbers could have anticipated the letter that came out. I do want to commend the effort the district is making. It's very apparent that the commitment and the want is there. Regardless of where the next few days or weeks take the district, I do feel good about the effort and commitment that has taken us this far. From that perspective, I am extremely pleased and proud of what we have all done. I'm a parent of a kindergartner at Clarendon. As you know, kids at that young age really enjoy school and all that comes with it. I cannot recall one day my son hasn't come home with a smile on his face, and the answer was, "It was great," when I asked him how his day was. I could go on and on about my thoughts, feelings, and appreciation thus far, but I won't. I know there are big decisions looming. All I ask and hope is that all options are considered and that we avoid, if possible, the one-size-fits-all approach. It is my hope that if a switch to virtual learning is necessary, that the district consider keeping our youngest students in the personal learning model, or at least some amount of in-person learning. Even if the kids had a few days a week in person, that would make a world of difference in my opinion. It is hard for me to see anything positive coming from full-time virtual learning at the kindergarten level. Of course, I am biased in the fact that my oldest is in kindergarten and I don't have the perspective of a middle school or high school parent. Thank you again for all that you continue to do. Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the school board. I have two sons in kindergarten and first grade at Clarendon. I want to say first and foremost, I am so impressed with how we have tackled COVID so far as a district and in our school. I have many friends in other nearby districts, and I feel like we've had much better plans than all of them. I felt like the boys would be reluctant to the change of wearing masks and staying distance, but each day they come out of school happy and excited to go back. I absolutely understand that COVID is ramping up for the season and that the staffing can be short, but I just wanted to put in my 2 cents on the side of keeping the kids in person or at least a hybrid option. My youngest can read and spell about 10 words now, and he is thrilled. He's so thrilled. My husband and I both work full-time out of the house, and I fear that no matter how good the virtual curriculum, that speeding train of learning will come to a crawl. Even if in person just a few days a week, it would help keep them on track, in my opinion. Also, I think I speak for many parents that after last spring, there's a great fear that once the kids go virtual, they won't go back the rest of the year. Thank you for what you're doing. To Mr. McNulty, school board and administrators, I wrote to you earlier this year, just prior to the start of the school year, to communicate our personal experience regarding virtual school and the impact that it's had on my 2 6-year-old children currently attending section. First, I want to commend the district administration, Mrs. Crockford, and all the staff at section for how they have handled these first few months of the school year in the midst of this chaos. I completely understand that it has been far from easy for anyone. The extra efforts, time, and work by all, especially the teachers, are recognized and appreciated. Because of the district's commitment to continued in-person education, my girls were able to attend school for 12 weeks without a break. The impact that the continued in-school experience has had on them has been incredible, and we have seen the result in the growth of their skills in this time. Thank you for giving them that opportunity. Unfortunately, due to close contact on the school bus, my children have been quarantined until November 30th. I understand this is a necessary step for ensuring safety, and we are making it work the best that we can. I want to make a special note that their teacher is doing all that she can to keep them engaged. However, our experience, even within the first week, has been less than ideal, and we are seeing the result in the quality of their work. Young children are easily distracted by non-school related activities in the home environment. Questions are not able to be answered as quickly when a teacher is managing an in-person classroom and multiple kids via Zoom. Assignments are not necessarily finished if they are not being checked or monitored. One of my children did extremely poor on a progress test because of distractions at home. If taken in school, this would not have happened. We also saw both girls under significant stress seen during the spring quarantine, being separated from their classmates and from being in front of a computer screen the majority of the day. My husband and I both work full-time jobs, and I spent a good portion of my time this week supporting the teachers' efforts. The virtual environment exponentially increases the challenges for teachers of young children to keep control of full classrooms, teach small cohort groups simultaneously, ensure work is getting completed, and to be available to answer questions for all children. Additional in-person support is needed to help teachers be successful, and not all parents are available during the day. I know we're not able to support in this manner. Virtual school becomes a long-term situation. As I stated in my earlier communication, we do not see virtual school as an effective option for our young children. They have thrived in the first 12 weeks of the year, making unbelievable strides with math and reading. My girls love their teacher, their class, and their school. In 1 week, we are already seeing disengagement and a stall in their learning. We as a family are taking precautions to keep our children in school. I would like to see MASD continue to take the approach they have taken and address quarantines and closings situationally. This conservative approach has allowed most kids to continue in-person learning and provided a semi-normal environment during unconventional times. All while most other districts have gone virtual. I appreciate this approach and want the continued opportunity for my children. Members of the school board, I want to start by thanking all those involved in keeping our kids safe in the classroom this fall. I know all the administrators, teachers, and custodial staff have been working very hard to maintain face-to-face learning, and we appreciate this effort from the bottom of our hearts. We are all taking COVID-19 very seriously and know that it takes a lot of effort to keep our kids in school. As a parent of a middle schooler, I implore you to continue the face-to-face learning for not only the learning it provides, but also for the mental health and safety of our kids. When learning went virtual last year, my child suffered from severe mental health issues that impacted not only our child, but our entire family. It has taken many months and a team of experts to help my child make improvements in their mental health and safety, and staying in school for learning is critical to success. If you take our personal story out of the conversation and just look at the data as of 11/20, the number of cases in our school district are very low due to the amazing work of everyone, yet the suicide and addiction numbers in school-age kids have skyrocketed across the country. Please, I beg you to consider the mental health and safety of all of our kids in the Mukwonago School District and keeping learning face-to-face. And then some links to some websites are available. First, I would like to start out by saying thank you all so much to you all in the school district have done to allow us to have in-person schooling this fall. Our daughters are currently in 1st and 6th grade at Section Elementary, and they were so happy to go back to school. I've seen both of our girls jump back into school with so much excitement. They are doing very well academically and emotionally this school year, and it makes us so happy because we were not sure how the spring virtual schooling might have sent them back. When school shut down in March, virtual schooling was not easy for our family. Our youngest was in kindergarten at the time, and she dreaded our daily schooling as mom was not Mrs. Nail and none of her friends were around. Our girls' teachers did a great job given the circumstances they were handed, and we were so thankful for all their work. My kindergartner was so excited to go to school, and all of that excitement to learn left when she was learning at home for the rest of the year. She hated being in front of the computer and cried or acted out when she was told she could not go back to school. Then there was my 5th grader. She is more independent and can learn on her own without as much guidance from me, but we definitely saw the quality of her work go down even after we pressed her hard to do better. We were competing with parents who were letting their kids play video games late into the night while we were forced our kids to keep a normal sleep and school schedule during the school week. Being in virtual school last spring and trying to work full-time meant we only did the main subjects, reading, writing, science, and math with the kids. When you're working from home during the day and trying to teach your kids, that does not leave time for music, art, and gym. I know a lot of people are concerned about the rise of COVID-19 cases. Our family is doing everything we can to try to limit our exposure so we can continue to go to school and work. We are hopeful that the school board will continue to use the current plans in place to keep in-person schooling. Good evening, MASD. My K-5 son is in the midst of his 2nd quarantine mandated by an exposure to COVID-19. His classroom teacher, Mrs. Lane, has gone above and beyond. She has not skipped a beat with her compassionate teaching and offering of support to both the children and parents navigating this unprecedented time. I suspect that you are getting a lot of communications filled with negativity. I hope this provides, at least for a moment, a sigh of relief. Stay well. Please, as you consider virtual learning, think of students like my daughter who could not learn from home for K-4 last year as the shutdown and is now behind, who is now in kindergarten and needs help from 2 teachers and an extra reading teacher and a counselor. She is a wonderful young girl who has extra needs, and neither me or my husband, who are essential workers, can give those extra teaching needs to her. So please at least consider keeping 4K up to 3rd grade only going at least. These poor young children have no idea what's going on, or if they're like my daughter, they cannot handle it emotionally or comprehend what is happening, and young children need school. Hi, I have a daughter in 1st grade and another that does speech therapy twice a week at Big Bend Elementary. I want to voice my opinion that we should keep schools open. My daughters do better with in-person learning. My husband and I work full-time, and it's very hard to try to get the learning done at home full-time as well. I had a hard time last spring juggling it, and I don't think they get the same level of education. We need to help keep our kids learning in the best environment, which I think is school in person. I think with the safety measures Big Bend Elementary is doing, we can still keep everyone safe at school. Please continue to follow CDC's guidelines and stay open. My child, who is on the spectrum, needs to be in school having social interaction with kids because that is the major thing that he struggles in. Please do it for the ones who don't have the abilities to help themselves. To the school board and attendees, first, let me open by saying thank you to all the educators in the district and the school board for navigating a pathway for our students in Mukwonago to maintain their education and their needs for the 2021 school year. While your efforts continue to have discussions and on learning options, it's very important. Let me remind you that you should be making these decisions for the Mukwonago district families and students based on facts, not based on your own opinions. I apologize I will not be able to attend in person to have this discussion. However, my wife, who works on the front lines in healthcare, must be at work tonight, and I cannot leave. As a parent of an amazing daughter with special needs, I must stress the importance of maintaining face-to-face, in-person learning for the remainder of the school year. Without occupational therapy, speech therapy, special education, and social interaction, my daughter would suffer immensely. Throughout this first portion of the school year, even with mask mandates and difficult learning situations, my daughter has thrived with in-person learning and as a small child craves that social interaction, which is necessary for social growth, not just for children who are with special needs, but all children. While I know I'm not the only parent of a child with special needs in the district, the responsibility to provide for my children the best possible learning experience falls to not just myself, but to the district as well. Imagine having a limited ability to communicate with people in person or the struggle of not understanding how to participate in a class activity without the assistance from an aide or another special needs teacher. Now imagine trying to accomplish those tasks in that situation on a Zoom meeting with a dozen other children. Your parents are working and you can't communicate and you need help or you don't understand the task in front of you. How successful would you be? How would you feel at the end of a Zoom class? Would it be absolutely detrimental to your learning and engagement for the duration of the virtual classes, which is exactly why we chose the in-person option for learning this school year when the options were first laid out. My concerns with moving away from face-to-face learning don't just come from a father of an amazing little girl who needs assistance daily, but also from a father of a growing, joyful, and energetic young boy who loves nothing more than to go to school and interact with his peers and strive to be successful in all of his tasks for his teacher. All of these young children in our district need and deserve the social interaction they gain from in-person learning. It is an essential building block of maintaining adult relationships and successful transition into society on their own. And I will end there. We are going to move into in-person citizens' comments. And I will start with Mark Summers.
First, I want to thank you all for having this open to the public. I'm a parent, a single parent, I want to emphasize that, of 3 children in this school district, 1 in high school and 2 in elementary school. The previous virtual learning was a debacle. My daughter, my oldest daughter, in high school failed the entire 4th quarter. My 2 younger children didn't do much better. So yes, I echo all of the parents saying keep in school, keep in-person schooling going. I do not agree with any of the parents that say do the virtual option. Right now, we see all the data saying it's in school. Follow the CDC. Don't make emotional changes. Make sure that it's in-person schooling for our students and for our parents in this district. Those of us single parents, we don't have another option. I'm on the verge of losing my job if we go to virtual again. I made it through the 4th quarter of last year. I'm not going to make it through if you shut down after Thanksgiving through January. I will not have a job. Think about my kids then. And I look at all of you for this. Think about children that lose their home because their parents lose it, because they can't have a job. Do we have any other options? No, we don't. Especially if you're going to make a decision that shuts down the schools. I have 1 week? Really? I'm asking you, begging you, keep our schools open. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Lisa Deppie.
It's short. Can we turn this, can we make this a little taller? Can you do that for me? It will hurt my back to bend over or crouch like that for 2 minutes. Fantastic, thank you. Good evening, everyone. You all know me from my regular letter writing to this group. You have been elected as representatives of our community. For some reason, elected officials have forgotten that they are serving the people, us. Do not decide the future of learning without again asking us. The vast majority of Mukwonago families chose 5-day-a-week in-person learning. I believe the vast majority still do. Your need for substitute teachers is real. Start working the community to recruit. Or better yet, utilize the CDC guidelines as they are defined as their name, guidelines. I will be ready and certified to sub starting Monday, a week from today. Community, they need us. Community, they need us. Live stream community, they need us. If you can give a day and work in the kitchen, if you have the ability to go and do the 4-hour class, get certified and do your part. Community is what this whole school district is about. I ask you to follow the science, read the facts, stop letting fear dictate your lives, and by association, our lives. I would like to remind you that guidelines are not law, and that there still is no law in our nation, our state, our county regarding COVID-19, close contact. What is going on? There's still no law in our nation, state, or community regarding COVID-19, close contact, quarantine, mask wearing, or virtual learning. Each day, our children fall further behind in their education, their mental health, and interpersonal development. I am committed to doing my part to keep schools open. Please stand up to the county officials, the fear, and the people on this board that feel they know what's best for our families, and fight back.
Next, I have Ann Maza. Do we still have an Ann? Okay, Jody Schlicht. Do I have a Jody? No Ann, no Jody? Joe Caldwell.
That's me. All right, I'm a little nervous. I normally don't speak at meetings like these. As an employee of the school district, I normally prefer to stay out of politics. But for the first time in my life, I feel a moral duty and compelled to speak. I will accept whatever decision this body makes and perform my duties very happily. I love working here, and this group of educators and administrators and custodians have done a marvelous job at operating this school wonderfully during this crisis. I just want to point out just a few things for you guys to think about. The growth rate of this virus is currently on an exponential curve, similar to how we saw in the spring. For some people who might need to kind of wrap their mind around what that means, an exponential curve. If I were to receive a penny and that penny doubles every day, so the next day I receive 2 pennies, the next day I receive 4 pennies. After 4 weeks, that turns into $1.3 million. That is how fast exponential growth rates happen. Right now, things seem fine. 4 weeks from now, after the holiday season, when people are traveling all over the place, things might not seem so fine. I want to keep these schools open. I want to keep these schools open in the spring. And I am concerned about the holiday travel season. I'm concerned about people going home for Thanksgiving and then coming back and returning to this school. I'm concerned about people going home for Christmas or going to their grandparents for Christmas and then returning back to school. And we have an opportunity here to let people do that safely. We have an opportunity to let people go and see their grandparents for Christmas safely. And they cannot do that safely if they are here 2 weeks before Christmas. And after Thanksgiving, they cannot return to this school safely if they go home to grandparents for Thanksgiving. It is almost a mathematical certainty that if you are with another group of people that come from more than 4 households, that somebody has COVID-19. And I don't think that people are going home for Thanksgiving and wearing masks and social distancing while they're eating around the table. I wrote a bunch of stuff, and apparently I just ignored it and started talking.
You have to wrap it up, Joe.
Yes, thank you. I just want you to think about this. I will do whatever I need to do. And I don't think that we need to close down everything. I don't think we need to shut down extracurriculars that can safely social distance and wear masks. But I am concerned about when the entire student body gathers in a building, and especially when they have lunch. Lunch is a very difficult time to keep people separate, to keep masks on. It's hard. And I don't know what's right. I don't want to be in your shoes. You have a terribly difficult decision to make, and there are a lot of passionate people out here, and I understand their passion. So thank you very much for listening. Thanks.
Thank you. Sarah Kopesky.
I encourage the board to keep schools open for in-person learning. By offering choice between in-person and virtual education, you have already given families the opportunity to determine what is best for their children and their personal circumstances. I remind you this window was recently opened at the end of the trimester, giving parents a chance to reevaluate their decision amid rising coronavirus cases in our county. Parents that selected in-person education are not unaware of the risk. They are aware of the tremendous importance of in-person learning for their children. I did not choose face-to-face learning because it is more convenient for me as a parent. I chose it because I know the best thing for my kids is to be in school with their teachers and peers. My children are in elementary school, which are critical developmental years. Studies already show the academic slide resulting from the shutdown last spring. I see it in my own home. A consistent inconsistency of bouncing from face-to-face to virtual learning and back again is difficult. When my children had to quarantine this fall, I saw tremendous improvement in the virtual learning provided by the teachers, and I applaud their efforts. However, the challenges of engagement, the stamina required for long sessions of sitting at a screen, and the logistics of logging in and navigating materials are still very present. How will all parents provide the support needed for their children truly engage and be successful if you enforce virtual learning? We've asked our kids to wear masks all day long, to spread out in the lunchroom, to collaborate with dividers between them, to give up field trips and more, and they have complied. And yet we continue to threaten closing their schools. I know the current health risks. I choose face-to-face learning for my kids because the risks of compromising their academic growth, their mental health, and their social-emotional development by not going to school in person are far greater. Thanks.
Thank you. Next we have Armando.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me talk. I have 3 kids. 2 two high school and one middle. This virtual was horrible for them. Their grades went down, they started missing. Kids need to be in school. From a teacher who works at MPS, I see the debacle and what this is doing to our students. I've seen kids who are in the top 15 percentile now getting 6 and 7 U's, 60 to 70% failure rate at the school district that I teach at. I am craving to get back into school and probably won't be able to teach the rest of the school year because of a knee-jerk reaction. Our kids need to be in school. We chose them to be in school and send them in. If you want to do virtual like the 4 parents that wrote letters, go virtual. We need to be in. And for my friend who's a teacher, if you're that afraid of your job, get a new job. Get a new job. No one forces us to be teachers. I love teaching kids, and I'm not worried about this. I want to be with my special ed students, teaching them in person, not on a computer. Doctors for how long have said, oh, how long are you on the computer? How long do you watch TV? You should only watch an hour a day. Now we want our kids to be on a computer for 8 hours? Not healthy. My high school, no headaches. My middle school comes home every day with a headache. And then they have to quarantine and then try to fight to get them to do the
Please wrap up.
debacle. Keep schools open. It's healthier for kids. If you don't want to do your job, get new teachers. From a school teacher at Milwaukee Public, I want to be back at school with my students. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Micah Roberts.
Thank you for your work so far in keeping the schools open. That's to be commended. I do have a few comments in regard to health officials in the community and in the schools also, and on the county level as well as the state level. They have been exercising unlawful authority in the decisions they have been making. And we need to see school boards willing to stand up to that and say, no, enough is enough. We're going to do what's right for the children in our community. Also, I want to make some comments about masks. First of all, I'd like to state that studies like the ones that have been done in Germany over the summertime with students and other recent studies have shown that adults are the predominant spreaders and not kids. There's also studies from other counties, one county in particular I'm thinking of, that says, although there is not widespread spread of this virus among the students, we recommend that you go virtual. Well, that doesn't make sense. If it's not spreading among the students, don't go virtual. And as well, that shows that kids are not the ones that are spreading this. So I don't believe that we should be forcing them to wear the masks. First of all, as Dr. Fauci said earlier this year, some droplets, they do not provide the level of protection people think they do. Wearing a mask may also have unintended consequences. People who wear a mask tend to touch their face more often to adjust them, which can spread germs from their hands, which I've had to do multiple times here. I've seen kids on the bus. They have to, as a bus driver, they adjust them. They have them fully soaked. I saw one girl the other day with a fully soaked mask. That's not healthy for kids. It gives kids headaches, as have been already mentioned. If I also may say that for 4K to 20 years old, guess how many have died in the state of Wisconsin? Last time I checked, there was none. All right, kids are not at risk for this. People that are sick won't be at school anyway. And
Please wrap up.
And it is unhealthy for healthy people to wear a mask. All right? We are a nation that has been founded on risk. Think of the Pilgrims who came to this nation, faced sickness, faced death. They were willing to brave it, and we're in no way that threatened. All right, in regards, and we have been founded as a nation on risks, being willing to take risks, and this is actually an investment in our future generations. We should not be taking away the rights of individuals and families.
Jason Bennett.
I just want to say first and foremost, I know that Mukwonago was not in any way, shape, or form prepared to go to virtual learning when this all came down in March. I live next door to Craig Burtz. I was speaking with him the week before this happened. I know that you guys were thrown into this situation. You've done a great job, so I applaud you for that. With that said, I have a son here at Mukwonago High School. He's got 5 AP classes this year. He's a straight A student last year during virtual, straight A in person. He's highly motivated, but I'm not here for him because he is a rarity. I'm here for my neighbors. I'm here for my neighbors' children. The kid down the block that has selective mutism, he's a sophomore. In the 5 years that I've known him, he's slowly making social growth. Slowly but surely getting to a place where maybe under ideal circumstances, he graduates from high school and can navigate through adulthood. This kid won't even leave his house now. Like the gentleman that spoke before, his mom has him petrified. He might as well be in a bunker watching CNN, scared out of his mind. The fact is that these kids have a much higher risk to flu than they do to COVID-19. 2 times, 2 magnitudes to be precise. These kids need to be in school. They need to be learning. They need to be socially growing, especially this generation that spends all their time TikToking, Instagramming, Facebooking. They're socially stunted from the get-go. And now we add to it that they're not even being in class. They're not having the interaction with their peers. I beg you on behalf of all the other kids, because my kid is going to be fine whether you go virtual or not.
Please wrap up.
I'll say this in closing. If you guys do end up going virtual, my son has expressed strong desire to just go ahead and wrap up at the semester mark and graduate early, which would be cheating him out of a full high school education. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That is all that we have for citizens' comments. We are going to move on to consent agenda. I am looking for the approval of board minutes from October 26, 2020, and the approval of voucher numbers 130652.
I'm sorry, I didn't put my name in the list. Can I I have a minute and a half. I won't even, and it's something different, so.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to express a little disappointment in the inconsistency in communication and policies regarding quarantine and close contacts. The guidelines that were communicated at school board meetings before school started were adhered to for a short time, but then they changed, which is totally fine. Clearly, we didn't know what we were getting into, and so it's not the changes that I have a problem with, but that the changes weren't communicated to parents. In addition, the qualifications for close contacts also changed. As such, a student with a positive case of COVID may be in my child's class, and my child would not be quarantined. Based on the size of a classroom, the number of students in our classes, and the fact that COVID is an airborne illness, it's hard for me to believe that the whole class would not be considered close contacts. While the district has changed their stance on this, as a parent, it causes me concern, as I would still consider my child a contact, based on the aforementioned factors. I believe parents should be kept in the know if there has been a positive COVID case in their child's class, which was the case for one of my students. When I reached out to administrators at my children's schools to attempt to get this information so that I could make a decision for my family, I was met in both cases with very cagey, vague responses. In one case, I did end up contacting Mr. McNulty, and he was able to give me a clear and concise answer, which I appreciate. In another case, I followed up with a call to the district nurse for clarification, but never received a call back. At the elementary level, a communication goes home to let parents know if there has been a positive case, whether my child was considered a close contact or not, which allows me to make a choice whether I feel I need to quarantine my child or not. At the middle school, and I assume the high school as well, there is no such communication. Even when I reached out with specific concerns in regards to my daughter, I got nothing but vague, generic answers.
Please wrap up.
Yep. There should be a way for parents to know this information, especially when they make an effort to search it out. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go back to consent agenda. I'm looking for the approval of board minutes from October 26, 2020, and the approval of vouchers 130652 to 130915 in the amount of $1 million and change, and receipts for October 2020 totaling $242,000 and change. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, they are approved by consent. We are going to get started with the student rep report.
Awesome. To start you guys off for tonight, we have our first report from Mukwonago High School. Chase Hackett, a freshman at Mukwonago High School, received an award from the Sandy Hook Promise National Contest. This contest was the Start With Hello Week Student Voices Award. The award recognizes students who creatively voice their commitment to inclusiveness and kindness through different categories. This year's theme was how Start With Hello can create unity in diversity, and you can check out the artwork below. Also, a congratulations to Avery Tobert, who was chosen as the 2020 Semper Fidelis All-American from a nationwide program. MHS also has some positive news about their employee, Champ, the service dog. The dog is still servicing our students by bringing smiles to students and staff every day. He also worked during virtual learning, joining in on Google Meets and staff meetings. We would also like to note that International Club had a meeting in which they held a virtual presentation with a returned Peace Corps volunteer. He served for 2 years in Uganda and shared his stories with the students about working there. At Parkview Middle School, their Q2 flight and space classes used the Sally Ride Earth Cam on the International Space Station to take pictures of our beautiful planet Earth. Also, PVMS celebrated Veterans Day with a wall of honor at Parkview Middle School, recognizing the courage of many veterans. These pictures are of present, past, or deceased military members that are relatives, friends, or neighbors of our students. We appreciate the service of our veterans, and you can also check out the picture of the wall below.
At Big Bend Elementary School, parents wrote compliments to their children that they used to shape turkeys out of. And the students got to read their compliments as a surprise, which was really nice for the young students. During Veterans Day, they made cards for loved ones who served. Student Council at Big Bend raised $2,900 for Adopt a Family to help families in our community buy Christmas presents in December. At Clarendon Elementary School, they celebrated Veterans Day. Virtual students got to speak to Miss Gregg, the librarian at the school, who was in the Air Force, and we want to say thank you for your service. Marnie Phillips was awarded the November Rotary Teacher of the Month for her work in the art department. Congratulations to her. At Eagleville Elementary School, they ended October with a pumpkin hike, and they painted pumpkins. It was a safe way to celebrate Halloween outside. This month, they've started Battle of the Books again. They've been meeting outside electronically. They've also begun a recycle rally. They had some students participate in Cole's Wild Theater to learn more about conversation, and they wrote personal narratives that they got to share with one another. At Prairie View Elementary School, they celebrated Veterans Day by reading patriotic pieces and playing taps over the announcements. They made an American flag out of handprints, and they wrote "Thank you, vets" on the fence, and also placed many flags around the grounds. At Rolling Hills Elementary School, a turkey trot will begin on November 24th with the help of the Mukwonago Police Department. They want to say thank you to the Elegant Farmer who donated apples for the event as a snack for the students. Rolling Hills Student Council raised money for Adopt a Family as well. They raised enough to help 20 families in the Waukesha area. And at Section Elementary School, they started the Scholastic Virtual Book Fair. And in honor of Veterans Day, they had an announcement where students got to play taps on the trumpets. And they have started the Grateful Gobbler, where staff members got to share what they're grateful for about their colleagues. Over 300 notes of gratitude were written and shared.
All right, thank you, ladies. We are going to move into committee updates. Just as a reminder for attenders, we go into depth on these topics each Monday throughout the month, so today is just kind of a recap. So if it seems like we're going fast, it's because the heavy lifting has already been done. Cherry, if you could start with student learning.
This month at the Learning Committee, we went through some policies. They were regarding accountability reports, eligibility for non-residents, homeless students, and military children. There were no changes with the exception of, we asked for more information on policy number 2700.01, so we won't be acting on that particular policy. We also had a discussion on high school math credits for Parkview classes, and I'm going to turn that part. Stephanie?
Bringing that to the full board for discussion during our December meeting.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to do some of it, part of it, or if you're just gonna not do it at all.
Yeah, we've been exploring allowing students to get high school credits for algebra and geometry when they take them in the middle school. It's been a pretty complicated process, but we are ready for a recommendation to the board in December.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then we discussed, UW Whitewater had asked us to be part of a survey, and there were some concern over whether names would be attached to it, so they're looking into that for that survey. We talked about a Spain trip, which has been approved, and we're watching any information that comes through in regards to that as well. We looked through some new course documentation for the varsity treble class that is already operating, and there are no new course proposals for the 2021 school year. Everybody's busy doing something else, but we don't know what. No, that was a joke. There are no new course proposals. The plates are full, and we're reevaluating next. And Stephanie gave us an update on the social studies pilot, and that will be continued as we go forward. And Erica had a question on some extracurricular activities and required credits, which is also coming back to the committee next.
Thank you, Cherry. Personnel committee update.
We just discussed a couple different things, a small update on COVID-19, and then we discussed CBD oils and their benefits, their likes, their dislikes. It stayed in committee. We're going to continue to look at that and see what options there are, and if we need to have a district policy in regards to CBD oils. And as a reminder to school board members that are expiring in their terms in April of next year, that they need to file their papers by the end of this year if they declare to run again.
Thank you, Andy. And then finance and facility committee update.
All right, we talked about our bond rating. We're double A, and we're aiming for a double A. Oh, sorry. We went over our bond rating. We're a double A, and we're aiming for a double A plus. So that's all going well. Do you have anything to?
In terms of refinancing our long-term debt, we'll finalize that on December 1st, and we'll save over $955,000 and take that off the cost that we originally established in April 2016 when we did our last referendum. So we saved a tremendous amount of money for the community.
So double A plus is as high as you can go. So, we talked about the 2021 mill rate and the referendum results.
Yeah, so our mill rate is at $8 even, which is the lowest mill rate in the county for K-12 public school districts. So we aim to be lowest, and we are. So that's for the third year in a row that we are there. And then I just gave a brief update to the committee members about referendum results statewide. There was 41 districts asked a total of 51 questions, and 84% of those questions passed. And there was a wide variety of questions ranging from issuing debt for construction projects, and a few districts posed questions about non-recurring referendums and recurring referendums. So there was a lot of success. I just shared what happened statewide with the committee.
You know, we talked about the IDC sponsorship.
I can elaborate on that. We have a sponsorship that I share with the committee. I'm happy to share it with the board as well from IDC Precision, which is headed up by Matt Glue. She's an MHS alum. His wife, Kristen, is a second grade teacher at Big Bend Elementary, and they're looking to do a 10-year sponsorship of our CTE wing, which is a great partnership with somebody in our community. They have 140 employees there, and they do a lot of great things. They donate equipment, and they do a lot of youth apprenticeships with our kids.
And then we went over the 2021 budget review briefly.
Yep, no concerns at this time.
No concerns.
All right, so we are going to go ahead and move into action items. I do not see any appointments, resignations, or retirements.
No, there are none.
Okay, so before we move into discussion on the learning model options coming up, I just want to thank everybody that came and spoke and everyone that sent emails for citizens' comments, as well as the many, many other emails that we got personally to the board level that were not read tonight, as well as phone calls and texts. I always appreciate input and you guys being part of the process. It means a lot to us to hear that feedback. And then I'm going to turn this part over to Sean.
Sure. So in your folder tonight is a Google slide presentation, so you want to pull that out. We will have the presentation on the screen, and Tom is going to click the slides forward. There are only 10 slides, so this should go rather quickly, but board members, this is meant to be an informal presentation, so if you have questions as we go along, by all means, please ask. So this is really divided into 4 parts. First, I need to reinforce our commitment to face-to-face education, to the face-to-face learning model. Second, I need to talk a little bit about the wide community spread of COVID and how that impacts our ability to keep our schools open. Third, I want to touch base on there has been some recent improvement, which is giving us cause for hope. And then finally, what does December look like? And so let's start, Tom, if you want to go to the second slide. Again, we want to confirm our commitment tonight to face-to-face learning. We, from day one, when we sat here on July 27, we made it clear that it is better for our students, for the vast majority of our students, to be in school. We understand that. It is better for their learning, it's better for their social and emotional growth, and it's better for their mental health. We get that. We have now completed roughly 30% of the school year. We are very pleased with how things have gone in our virtual model and in our face-to-face model. We believe both have been highly successful. All of our schools, all 8 of our schools, have been 100% face-to-face, except for Mukwonago High School. As you know, Mukwonago High School did go virtual for 7 school days in the month of November. So 7 out of 50, I think we've had 56 school days, if you're looking for context there. We are continuing to follow the recommendations of the Waukesha County Health Department. The Waukesha County Health Department has not recommended any move to virtual schools at this time, and I don't see that in the near future, with one exception. I'll explain that a little bit later in the presentation. The Waukesha County Health Department does follow the CDC and Wisconsin Department of Health guidelines, and so we are continuing to follow those guidelines as has been recommended by our legal counsel and our liability insurance carrier. And as many people noted in the emails that we received tonight for citizens' comments, we're well aware that the CDC Director, Robert Redfield, did recommend to keep schools open, and we agree with that. We agree that students are safer in schools and that much of the virus spread has taken place outside of schools. Next slide there, Tom. We firmly believe that our schools are safe. I cannot stress that enough. Our safety measures that we have put in place are working to keep students and staff safe in our schools. Masks, plexiglass, social distancing when we can, hand washing, quarantines, cleaning and disinfecting, all of those mitigation measures are working. They are all integral, important components that we must have to keep our schools open. A couple of additional points I want to make here. There certainly has been some spread within our schools, and I do want to recognize that. I don't want to minimize those cases where we've had students or staff contract the virus in our schools. Some have been very sick, and we do want to recognize that. That said, we do believe that the majority of the spread is outside of our schools. Also, need to extend a huge debt of gratitude, a huge thank you to a couple of different groups, including our students. They have been outstanding. There is no doubt that it has been a joy to have them back in our schools. They have been compliant with the mask mandate, They have been wonderful. And so we want to thank our students for all the good work thus far. We also want to thank our staff. We want to thank our administration. We want to thank our instructional assistants, our food service staff, our buildings and grounds, our office staff, and of course our teachers who have borne the brunt of the work that it takes during COVID to keep your schools open. It is not easy. It is hard work. Our teachers and our staff are working more than ever before to keep our schools open. And we need to recognize that. Our teachers are not replaceable. And I want to make that clear. If we recognize that it's best for our students to be in school, we also have to recognize that sometimes it's not in the best interest of all of our adults. And that's been the challenge since day one. We said that right away on July 27th. Absolutely, students need to be in schools. But for some of our staff, it's not always the best place to be, especially if there is spread of the virus. Continuing on, this is a slide that I actually shared with you, I think maybe not on July 27th, but definitely when we met again in August. So what I stated at that time was that in order to have a successful start to our school year and then sustain that successful start, we need to have a number of components. 1, mitigation measures. 2, a strong COVID-19 testing program. 3, we need to be able to isolate students and staff that were positive. 4, we needed to have an effective contact tracing program. 5, we needed to reduce the community spread of the virus. And at that time, if you remember, and I actually have a slide that will show that, so I'll come back to that. And then also, we needed to have fully staffed buildings. You cannot have school without staff. It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, at this point, although there's been a little improvement, unfortunately, we're not seeing the last 5 items on this list. And much of the difficulties that we're facing is the wide spread of the virus, as I said, outside of our schools. So if we go to the next slide, this will give us a little idea of what I'm referring to. So this slide and the graph over on the right does not correspond to the cases in Waukesha County right now. This is from back in August. But Waukesha County has roughly about 405,000 people. At the end of June, when we first made our decision, we first announced that we were going to be coming back face to face. At the end of June, there was under 23 cases, new cases per day of COVID in Waukesha County. At the end of July, and you'll remember I said this when we met on July 27, I was worried a little bit that the cases were increasing. We were up at the end of July to about 113 cases per day, new cases per day, at the end of the month. We came back, we met again in mid-August, and by that time it had reduced. And that's what I was talking about. We needed to reduce the community spread of the virus in the previous slide. But then in November, you can see from November 13th through the 19th, and I don't think Waukesha County, I don't know if their website, if they updated and had cases for the weekend, but when I looked this morning, they did not. That's why I used 13th through the 19th, 700 plus new cases per day. And that is really what's driving this conversation tonight. 700 plus new cases a day. That's creating all sorts of issues for us in keeping our schools open. So continuing on along with that theme, the next slide, please, Tom. That wide community spread of the virus is hurting us. Hundreds of new cases a day in Waukesha County are impacting our ability to stay face-to-face. Student and staff absences throughout the month of November. until just recently, were dramatically increasing. We need to understand that instruction and learning is less effective when you only have half of your class sitting in the seats and then the other half are at home trying to learn virtually. Just to put this in perspective, comparing, and I know sometimes you guys have asked, how is our absent rate this year compared to last year? From November 11 to November 15, so the second full week in November of last school year, I used kindergarten through 8th grade for these absences because the high school was not in session. They were virtual during part of this time. November 11 through the 15, K through 8 absences for that week, 601. So continuing on, thank you. November 9 through the 13, November 9 through the 13 in 2020, K-8 absences, 2,738. So that's a significant increase, a significant difference. And again, it makes face-to-face learning challenging for our staff when we have so many kids out of school. And then finally, in addition to staff testing positive and being quarantined, another reason that we have been challenged is because a number of our staff themselves have had to stay home because their own children have been quarantined. Then finally, on this slide, I mentioned the fact that Waukesha County Health Department is also overwhelmed at this time. They can no longer inform schools of positive cases in a timely manner. They are no longer telling us. They will tell us when a student tests positive, but they no longer can tell us because they're overwhelmed and backlogged when a parent in our community, parent of one of our students, has tested positive. And they have reduced their contact tracing and have placed that burden now on the schools. So another challenge that we face. So there's no doubt that the first half of November was a tough month. Because of the challenges that we faced, next slide, Tom, we did come up with some metrics. Due to the increase in student and staff absences and the possibility of having to switch our learning models, we needed to solidify our metrics to make sure that we were being transparent with everyone. And so these are the metrics that we have been using, and these are the metrics that we used when we switched Mukwonago High School to a brief virtual learning. So we had a dramatic increase in the number of students testing positive. We reached the 1 in 100 rate. So at Mukwonago High School, for example, right now they have about 1,400 kids in face-to-face, and we were over 14 and reached as high as 18 at Mukwonago High School. Students testing positive. Now, I'll readily admit that not all positives are going to be looked at in the same way, because some of our students, let's just say, I'll use Craig. If Craig had students at school, son or daughter in school, if Craig had tested positive from work, for example, his son or daughter would be home in quarantine. If a few days later they started developing symptoms and then went and got tested, came back positive, they would count as a positive at Mukwonago High School or in our district. However, that student was not in our school when they were infectious. And so that's going to be looked at a little differently than another student who may have been in school and then developed symptoms, then tested positive. That student's going to knock out many more kids than the case or the scenario I just shared with Craig. That student, Craig's son or daughter, would not have led to any quarantines in our school. So those are two different types of positives that we also have differentiated when we're looking at that metric. The next metric is when 20% of our face-to-face students are absent from school. That's a rolling 3-day average. And it's for COVID and non-COVID. So we're going to share some numbers here in a minute that are going to be COVID related, and that's what you'll find on our dashboard. But when you look at our dashboard, which we update on Tuesdays and Fridays, you have to understand, in addition to those students that are in quarantine or isolated due to testing positive or awaiting a test, we also have a number of other students that are absent from school. Could be for deer hunting, could be for a family vacation, could be for a variety of reasons, but they're still absent from school. And then finally, and really maybe the most important one, and the one that really drove our decision to shut down Mukwonago High School for that 7 days, and I shouldn't say shut down because it was not shut down, that's poor choice of words on my part, moved to virtual for those 7 days, is simply not enough staff to operate our schools safely. There is a teacher shortage, there is a substitute shortage, and we are continuously recruiting and advertising for our substitutes, and not only for teachers, but for support staff also. And then the final item on this slide is that it is possible that the Waukesha County Health Department could recommend to districts in Waukesha County that they should move to virtual. I think that only happens if the hospital capacity gets to such that they're in crisis. That has not been an issue as of yet. I have no idea if it will happen or not. Any questions? Then moving on to the next slide, this just shows our experiences in our schools for the last 3 months. And as you can see, up in the top left-hand corner, it shows active student cases. And you can see that September and October was going pretty well. We had, well, I would describe a great September and October. November's been tough. And you can see that we peaked roughly around November 13 with 46 positive students in our district, with about 4,600 kids in our district that are a little bit fewer that are face-to-face. That's, again, roughly 1 in 100. Then if you go to the next slide to the right, students quarantined and isolated, and again, this does not include our non-COVID students absent. So you can see we topped out again mid-November at 597 students that were in quarantine or isolation due to COVID. Then you can see the steady progression again with staff. Active staff cases means positives, and then staff quarantined and isolated on the right-hand side, again with staff, and you can see the peak coincides with the positive test. But the good news is, and I hope everybody notes, that after those peaks in mid to later November, we've seen a decline. And so that should give us some hope, I hope. And then the next slide, same thing. These are our dashboards from last week, Tuesday and Friday. And again, that's showing some improvement. It does not include, again, students and staff that are out absent for non-COVID related items. And so this does not include, for example, teachers and staff members that are out home. And again, I can't stress this enough because we've had a lot of it. Teachers and staff that are home taking care of their own kids who are in quarantine. That's been a challenge, no doubt about it. Next slide, better representation of the number of student absences. So this is a percentage of the students that are absent for our face-to-face schools. And again, this was a bad week. There's no doubt about it, but it got better. So November 16th is the first date. That was last week, Monday. So you can see at Big Bend, we were at 26.4% of our students were out, absent. That's tough to make schools work when you have that many students out. Prairie View was high, Rolling Hills was high, Parkview was high. But as you can see, as we went throughout the week, things got much better. And then today, 11/23, still some better news than what we saw last week, certainly better than what we saw the week before. We do have a number of families that have, and I don't have the number with me, and I apologize, that there are a number of families that have chosen to keep their kids home. Could be for vacation, could be, like I said before, deer hunting, but a number of families have kept their kids home today especially, and probably tomorrow, for non-COVID related reasons. So again, that slide shows COVID and non-COVID absence. So, with that in mind, we do believe that it's safe to return to face-to-face learning after Thanksgiving, but there's a but. So, with reduced numbers of students and staff absences, K-12 can return face-to-face. Throughout the month of December, we'll be using our metrics to drive any learning model changes. Without a reduction in COVID community spread, it's unlikely, in my mind, that we'll be able to stay face-to-face. But again, we'll use our metrics to drive those learning model changes. I truly believe that we had the spike in November because of activities related to Halloween. I'm very concerned about holiday activities over the Thanksgiving break and whether or not that will drive another spike. I don't believe that's unreasonable to guess or to forecast out that we may see another spike. And if we do see another spike, it's going to be challenging to keep our schools face-to-face. So, parents should be prepared. They should be prepared that any and all of our schools may have to go virtual at some time in December. May not. Let's hope not. We don't want to go virtual. We prefer to stay face-to-face. Our commitment to face-to-face stays strong. We should also be taking a look, as I mentioned in my email to the board last week, taking a look at those days, December 21 and 22. That's a Monday and Tuesday. So we start our Christmas break on Wednesday the 23rd. And then if we do have another spike, if we have another holiday-related spike in December, then I have to think that we have to give serious consideration, and I'm not saying we should decide tonight, but we have to give some serious consideration to being virtual when we come back after Christmas break. So the first 2 weeks when we come back, possibly for our secondary schools, the first week for our elementary schools, that would be the week of January 4th and the week of January 11th. And I do want to make one other note, and I was going to mention it earlier, but our comfort level with closing schools or going virtual, we don't have a comfort level. It's not where we want to be, but for the lack of a better term, I think our comfort level is higher with secondary students, high school, maybe middle school, more so than elementary. We completely understand the challenges that parents with elementary children face when we go virtual. We get that. We also understand the challenges that elementary students in particular have with virtual learning. It's much more challenging for them than it is for our high school students, for example. So we certainly are going to keep that in mind with this decision-making process. With that, I'm wondering if you have questions.
Well, I would just like a clarifying answer, maybe. So this is on action item. So what is it that is an official recommendation that would be something actionable? Is it that we return to school on Monday the 30th and that we're watching the numbers and playing things by ear, but hesitantly?
So really, no action needs to be taken because we're not making any changes. When we put the agenda together, we really didn't know what the recommendation would be. And if I had come back and recommended that we were going to go virtual for a week, then I would have asked for your action on that, but we're not making a change. So we're planning to return face-to-face. Now, if you guys think that that's a poor recommendation and you want to say we should be virtual, then you might want to have board action.
Any comments or questions from the board? Jill?
Yeah, I just want to take the time to say something for the people that took their time to come here and listen to us. I'm not sure what you were anticipating, but I'm going to put my 2 cents in. First of all, we get all of these letters that have been sent to us thanking us as a board for keeping the school open. I can't begin to figure out how we are ever going to thank the teachers and the parents and the administrators who have come through in this circumstance. We get the letters from the teachers. We all take the time, I believe, to read them. And it is pretty amazing what some of these teachers have had to do and have done to keep things going. So I know I speak on behalf of everyone, but I want to take this opportunity to say thank you. Next, if you look or watch the news, every radio program, every newscaster, over the last 2 weeks, we would all have the fear in God of us if we stepped out the door to have Thanksgiving meal with anyone. I know of no one in my personal circle, and I'm kind of old, so I have a lot of friends, that are not paying attention to Thanksgiving and doing what they feel is right. I know of no one in my circle who is going out on a limb, having 15 people, having 20 people, having some party behind closed doors. And these are people that I know and I trust. It breaks my heart that I am not with my family. I mean, we are breaking up. We are only a family of 15 people when we're all together, but 3 of them are college students coming home. And we have each agreed to have our own separate Thanksgiving. So I want to approach this with the glasses half full, not half empty. I want to believe that all of this anticipated panic and what ifs isn't going to come to pass. I think that you all and our parents and our teachers and the public is going to do a pretty good job in the next 5 to 10 days. And I hope I don't eat those words, but that's how I'm approaching it. And we have been in school, I count through tomorrow 57 days. Would that be right? I don't know if you
That's
said
right.
56 through today, 57. You have made it through 57 days. We have 17 days left to go till Christmas. And today, I'm sitting here saying, we're going to work with the facts. The 3 metrics that we have today that Sean has laid out, and none of this is a surprise to us. I mean, these are things we talk about. We all show up at the committee meetings every single week. The majority of us are there. And we have to follow the facts and not the emotion. So I'm going to trust that we are going to continue on this path, and that if we have to convene and make a decision to flip to all virtual or by school, we're going to make the right decision. So that's my 2 cents. Sorry, I went over 2 minutes.
You don't have a 2-minute limit, Jill. You're fine. Craig?
I think the parents have spoken loudly as far as what they want. The survey came out, what they wanted. I fully support the taxpayers in our district. And maybe we can try harder to watch these numbers, and maybe we can do a better job as far as recruiting Lisa deputies out there to come in and teach our kids to stay open, because I believe the community is asking to stay open. My opinion.
Art?
I'm just all for the recommendation right here, the plan that we have going forward. From the get-go, we were trying to do face-to-face. We're going to do it as successfully as possible and just keep moving ahead. and being smart about it.
Andy?
First off, I'd like to thank everybody that sent emails to us and those of you that spoke at citizens' comments. Trust me, I heard you, and I agree. I want to keep our schools open. The taxpayers in this community are absolutely incredible to this school district, and to do anything less than that would be a disservice to all of you out there, including those of you that aren't here. The fear-mongering, the news, the media, to Jill's point, you know, you walk outside, the world's going to end. That's not how this world is. And people are adults. They're going to make choices. They're going to live with those choices. And I want to keep our schools open. I will always vote to keep our schools open because that's the right place for kids to be, is face-to-face in front of our teachers. And for those of you that are celebrating with your families, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, God bless you, and I hope you have a great holiday, because I do not share the opinion that we should hide in our houses and be afraid to go outside. And we have been robbed of a lot in 2020. So to not have our holidays and to not be with families, good luck.
I also agree with the district that we need to stay open. We need to stay face-to-face. I have a high schooler who was quarantined, and you know, his grades are dropping. He's miserable. He's going to be home for 24 days. All he wants to do is get back to school. He's a senior this year, and he's being robbed of his senior year. Parents in our community are being responsible. And any of you that know me, I come from a very large family. I have 6 brothers and 4 sisters, and we have broken Thanksgiving up into little pieces. And if I were you, I'd invest in turkey stock this year. But we need to stay open. We need to do what we can to stay open. And I think you're doing a great job so far, and the teachers and staff are doing a great job.
I appreciate everything that everybody wrote in and said here. I agree, ideally, that we always, as much as we possibly can, have face-to-face learning. Now, there's still some that choose the virtual, and that's what we offer that option for. We're going to try to do that as much as we can, just as Sean said. Hopefully, over these holidays, that as much as we like to get together with family, and I'm like anybody else, we have choices to make. Personally, my choice is I'm going to try and just hunker down. I'm caregiver for my 93-year-old mother, and so I want to make sure that I stay as healthy as I can, because I have to do that, and I want to make sure that's something that doesn't get in the way. But everybody has to make their own choice on that. But if we can do the best we can to try and take reasonable measures, hopefully we won't have any problems after Thanksgiving or the Christmas holidays, so that we would find a need to have to go to a virtual option for any period of time. And I think people will do that. I think people have enough common sense and goodwill that they should do that. I guess the biggest concern I've always had is for the staff and being able to have enough people in the building to keep the thing running. And if we don't, then that's a problem. So we have to figure that out. And if we are short of staff, then there's choices that'll have to be made. But at this point, I think the ideal and what we're going to strive and do the best we can is to keep face-to-face as we have had since the start of the school year.
I'd like to thank everyone who made comments. I definitely appreciate all the different perspectives that each of you bring. I'm definitely in support of the administration's plan that they've put together and how they've focused on keeping kids in school. So I think that really with that approach, looking at the numbers, is the right way to go. And I encourage everyone to do their part.
Okay, I also would like to say thank you for everyone who has commented. I would like to represent some of the comments that were not said tonight, because I know all of you sitting here at these tables received other emails from staff, and there was only one staff here tonight. And I do know that some of our staff is very concerned. And I also know that Sean mentioned we cannot replace our staff and we cannot run our schools without our staff. And so my comments tend to be that we need to, everybody here is talking about community. Community is not only the people who believe that we should keep schools open, community is also those that think possibly not taking the chance and quarantining would keep us from having to quarantine by having less people have it, meaning less people being exposed, meaning less people being quarantined later. I agree with trying to keep the school open. However, I think we do need to think about the people who have commented that possibly if we would have to quarantine, the time that we would have the schools closed and virtual is, if I count right, less days than a quarantine. Am I right in that? It's between having the Christmas break and being closed on the other ends, the days that we are out of school is less than the 14 days that you might have to be home if somebody's there. So not to look at it as, I guess all I'm saying is don't look at it as like this curse or this terrible punishment because we'd have to do this, because it isn't even that many days. We are not talking about closing schools until May or June. We're just talking about taking a break so that this disease can not spread as quickly. So I'm just asking people to think a little more open-mindedly, because you're being so dogmatic one way or the other is not helping our community be a community. And I think we need to keep that in our thoughts. And I think Sean kind of tried to say that, and I just wanted to reiterate that piece of it. I have two questions that I wrote down. Sean, you said that, I don't know, maybe you can hear me, I can't hear me. I know you said that there are quite a few teachers home with their kids. When you say quite a few, are we talking 5? Are we talking 20?
I don't have that in front of me,
but you said a lot, so that's why I just didn't know what you consider. What would you consider?
So more than two or three, you know, at times when things were going poorly. Again, 2 weeks ago, it may have been as many as 10, but I'm reluctant to say for sure.
That's fine.
I'd prefer to, you know, get that to you in an email with the exact number, but
okay,
it's more than a handful.
Okay. And so the other thing is, if there are parents or would choose to quarantine themselves for their grandparents or for whatever reason they chose, they don't feel it's safe to come between Thanksgiving and whatever. How would that look from an administrative perspective for those families?
You mean as far as how we classify them?
I mean, as far as, okay, are you truant? If a family would think for their family it would be best to quarantine for those weeks, even though we choose to do what we're doing?
Sure.
Would that be negative on their record, or how would that be handled?
So we did have a number of families that prior to the Thanksgiving break, and I don't know how many, again, maybe 7 or 8, maybe 12 or 15 families. Prior to Thanksgiving, they decided to keep their children home because maybe they wanted to travel to see the grandparents for Thanksgiving, and so they wanted to make sure that their kids were healthy prior to going to the Thanksgiving celebration. So I think that's marked as family planned, that they're not punished. They're not marked truant.
Right. They have that choice without being. We are being graceful in.
Yeah, I would say we're being graceful. It does create complications for the teachers who have then another student out of the classroom that they are then trying to provide instruction for. And as we've said, it's a real challenge to meet the needs of the students that are sitting in your seat, in the seats in the classroom, but then at the same time, trying to meet the needs of those students that are home, maybe learning at the same time simultaneously, or aren't able to tune in, and so you have to provide them with lessons later in the evening. So that's an added challenge, but we also understand why people are doing it. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So-
so it's certainly not true.
And then you had gone into the buildings and you had meetings with the teachers. With all, I mean, you have sent us these things.
But-
So,
Just to clarify, though, we did the meetings via Zoom, so I didn't go into the
Oh, okay.
buildings.
Well,
I mean,
you-
I go into the buildings other times, but we did the Zoom meetings.
so, for the staff that is concerned and is feeling somewhat, I mean, I got a feeling from, maybe you guys didn't get this feeling, but I got a feeling from some of our staff that they were, I'm gonna use a word that I don't necessarily mean, but it's the one I came to, I mean, is burned out. It's like, because like you said, this is very difficult because you're like teaching 2 classes. It's
Yes.
not teaching 1. So as we are making our decision to keep our kids in school, are we burning out our teachers?
So I think we definitely stretched them to a breaking point in November, and we're hoping that we don't have to go there again, but I would say that it is extremely difficult teaching during COVID for a variety of reasons. So are
And
they
so-
burned
so-
out? I don't know if, I don't know if I can say if they're burned out or not. Are they stressed? Yes. Was it a tough month? Yes.
So at some point, will you know, because there are teachers both ways, just like there are parents both ways, as far as what they want.
Yep.
So are you feeling that you have a pretty good understanding that if we get to a place where our teachers do not feel they can, the majority of our teachers or enough of our teachers feel that that it's just too difficult, that we might have to do something at that point? I just want to know that their voices are being heard.
Their voices are being heard, yes. They let me know.
And I did want to comment on that, Cherry. Like, we did receive emails and feedback, and I've heard from teachers that are struggling. We've all gotten some of those as well. So I want them to know that we have heard, we understand the challenges and the difficulty, and we don't move forward with this recommendation without acknowledging that.
That's what I'm.
But on the flip side, I have also received, and I believe the board has as well, more emails than ever from staff wanting to communicate that they are 100% in. We didn't hear this in July. Everybody was nervous simply because we didn't know what to expect yet. And now we've been in the building for 56 days, and the teachers have, I mean, they're in the rhythm. Some of them are far more challenging than others, no doubt. And we have heard that, and I want them to know, if they're listening, we hear that, and we acknowledge that, but we continue moving forward with this recommendation to try to stay open. We know it's best for kids, it's best for mental health. We have a robust tech ed program here at the high school. If we go virtual, all of those kids aren't taking their hands-on classes. So we know that it's a multifaceted, difficult decision to make. We have single parents. We have so many parts that we don't want the teachers to think that we're not hearing them, but that we're hearing all of it. And there's so many moving parts that it's impossible to make a decision that's going to be perfect for everybody. But I think right now it sounds like the board, we're all in agreement to continue to move forward with the recommendation of staying open and keep watching the numbers. Does that sound right, board? Okay.
Correct.
Anything else? Otherwise, let's move on to MASD facility study. Okay. So we have the MASD facility study and CTE expansion action item.
Yeah, so we had, at the Finance Committee meeting last Monday, we had gone through a couple different things. One is Dustin Lehman came and joined us, as did Andy Wagner, and we talked about some of the needs of the CTE program. Currently, there are students that are being turned away. The renovation that took place in 2016 and 2017 made new learning spaces that are really attractive and has sparked interest in our CTE programs to the point now where we're turning students away in certain coursework. So that started the conversation of what of this particular conversation, and really at this time we are just ultimately looking, and the committee is recommending that we do a full facilities planning study so we can identify our district-wide needs, not just at Mukwonago High School, not just for the CTE program, but we'd like to do a district-wide study to identify our needs, prioritize them, and then to make a facility strategic plan come up out of that. There's certain things we want to take a very close look at. We want to look at where we're housing our SOAR program. Currently, that's off-site. We also want to develop a new space that's dedicated for our 18 to 21-year-old program. Currently, we don't have a place for that. We've also had new challenges that came about from 2 4K community partners that are no longer partners, and that's put some stress on Prairie View and other areas, other elementary schools that couldn't house it currently if they had to. We've talked about in years past about the space constraints at Parkview Middle School, and I mentioned the CTE spaces. There's space in the southeast corner of the building that is currently occupied by Andy Wagner's Buildings and Grounds Department. There's 8,000 square feet there, and because it's adjacent to our current CTE wing, that's just one possibility is to expand, and with board permission, obviously. But before we do any of this, we just want to take a look at a study to see what our options are, what the costs are, and then we could bring that back. So we're just looking for permission right now to have that study and to look into that.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion?
Andy, that was you on the second?
Yes.
Okay.
Great idea.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then the air quality, was that wrapped in that
Oh,
one?
no, I'm sorry, that's the last action item there, so. Did
Okay.
it move, I guess, from
Sorry,
the?
it's in it's in the attachment in the wrong spot, sorry.
Okay.
School safety drill report.
Yeah, so Wisconsin statute 118 requires that the school board reviews the school safety drill results from all of our schools. So we've given that to you. You have the results from each principal there. So we're giving those to you, and we're just looking for you guys to acknowledge that you've received those. If you have any questions about that, we can talk about that. But you have those results there, and we're just bringing them to you now. We submit those to the state by December 31st, so we're looking to take official action here that you've received them.
So we need a motion to acknowledge that we accept the school safety drill summaries.
Correct.
Okay, I will make that motion. Art, second. Any other discussion or question? Okay, yes, Jerry. Did you have a question? Oh, no, okay. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion carries. Okay, so UW Whitewater 912 FIAD survey.
Permission to do a study in Stacy Butala's FIAD classes. We reviewed this as a committee. The recommendation from the committee was to go ahead and allow this to happen, but I did want to clarify because the committee had asked if names needed to be on the survey. I did clarify with the person running the survey from UW Whitewater that it will be a number that will be used, that even though that sheet said name on top of it, that they would not ask for name, that they would do a number.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the participation of that survey.
I'll second it.
Okay, so I'm actually going to have Cherry the motion. I was just saying I need the motion.
Oh, you need
Are you
the
willing
motion?
to make
I
the
will
motion?
make the motion.
Okay, Cherry's got a motion. Jill, second. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries. So we have policy 6325, procurement, federal grants and funds.
Sure, this policy 6325 is one that we don't currently have, so we're trying to introduce this and adopt this as policy, and the policy is simply to make sure that we are aligned with our procurement practices when it comes to spending federal grant money, and to make sure that everything we do is in compliance with the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I will make the second. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Are we skipping number 7, the wages for staff during second quarantine, or
So
is that for executive session or no?
that's for executive session.
Okay, so we'll move down to support pay.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Wait. Susan, are we going to do we need to discuss that in executive session?
No, we,
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I apologize.
Okay. So
We
back
can
to
do
number
that
7.
right now. Yep.
The wages for staff during second quarantine, and Susan is here for that.
I am. So there's two parts to this. So the first is the memo that's titled Family First Coronavirus Response Act, and there's two recommendations. One is making the recommendation that the school board consider approving another 10-day paid leave allowance for employees that are expected to quarantine for a second time as a result of exposure while at work. So in other words, it is because they have a close contact that occurred during the work. That has already happened to 2 employees yet this year, so it happens much quicker than I expected. The second recommendation is to consider, and this is prospectively, extending the 10-day paid leave. That's, the federal law is expected to sunset as of 12/31/20. As of now, I have not heard any recommended extension to that. So this would leave people pretty much, especially support staff that might not have a lot of sick leave, without any type of quarantine pay past 12/31. So those are the two recommendations I'm asking you to consider.
Okay, I'll make the recommendation that we approve these two.
We have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so we have Mary motions, Jeff second. Any other questions or discussion on this topic? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, no, motion carries. And then we have the support pay during move to virtual instruction.
Right, so as you may remember last spring, because the quarantine or the closure happened so quickly, the board made the decision to pay everyone through the year, and we used as many staff as we could. This time we have developed a draft of a plan that if this happens again, either for multiple schools or the district as a whole, of how we're recommending to utilize staff in a much more planned manner, and that we would recommend to reassign as many staff members as we can. And this primarily affects support staff members, since teachers would most likely be teaching virtually. What we are recommending and asking you to consider is for those members that we cannot reassign, we don't have a place for them, we just can't find a reassignment, that you would recommend doing an up to a 10-day paid period before we have to put them out on unpaid furlough for an unnamed amount of time. So that's what we're recommending as part of this plan.
I make that motion.
Cherry makes that motion. Do I have a second? And Joel, a second. Any other questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Question.
Would they not qualify for unemployment if they were furloughed immediately?
They may. The difficulty is that, as we all know, unemployment is taking, in some cases, 6 months and longer for them to receive any type of benefits. If the shutdown happens as quickly as it usually does, this could leave staff members virtually with no time to plan and no time to receive any type of benefits while trying to figure out what they're going to do. So we're trying to do this prospectively. And like I said, our plan is really to put as many people to work as we can, all hands on deck, cleaning, handing out food, figuring out what we need to do. So I would imagine that this is going to be a very small amount of people because we want as many people as we can working.
Craig.
So hypothetically, Susan, we would spend $1 million if there was a shutdown, is that correct? Hypothetically speaking, for this?
For our support staff,
Yeah.
our cost for our about 275 support staff is $150,000 a week.
$150,000 what, Tom?
$150,000 a week for 5 days of work.
So $150,000 a week, so we'd be spending $300,000?
For 2 weeks.
Well, for as long as, you're saying as long as the shutdown is? If there's a
I'm
shutdown
saying,
for 10
like,
weeks?
This 5-day period, or I'm sorry, last week for 5 days with all hands on deck, that's the cost.
That's the cost to pay everyone, correct?
Correct, yep.
So if there's furlough, that number would drop if there's a voluntary furlough.
Correct.
But
There's a lot of hypotheticals, it seems, in this, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I not
And
hearing
if
that
we,
right?
and if we were to give a carte blanche approval to this, what if we couldn't?
Andy, talk to your microphone.
If we were to give carte blanche authority to approve this, and then what happens if a lot cannot be reassigned, then we're talking a larger price tag, right?
So it's our estimation that I would say that this is probably going to be less than 10% of our staff members, at the most.
Now, these are hourly associates, so would not it be beneficial for them to furlough immediately and file for unemployment claims? I understand that Evers has the whole thing all screwed up at the
Sure.
state, but for them to file immediately and get those benefits in motion, than to wait 10 days?
If they, so we would anticipate, so you could file for unemployment right away, saying, I'm going to be furloughed as of this date, right? And then going forward, you're going to be. If someone refuses a reassignment, I'm suggesting they don't get the 10 days.
So do you think some would just say, I'll just take the furlough?
Yep. I think some will. Because some are going to say, I don't want to clean the building.
Right.
I don't want to hand out food. I don't want to do what you're asking me to do. I only want to do this job, and that's fine. That's their choice. But what I'm saying is then the board shouldn't have to pay that. What I'm offering is, what I'm recommending is a soft landing for those folks that have no other option.
And I don't see that in corporate America. I think there's a lot of people that lost their jobs that didn't get a soft landing or 10
I
days worth of pay.
understand.
I think there's too many unknowns in it.
So Susan, your recommendation is only for 10 days worth?
Yes.
So last year when we did decide to pay our support staff, it was because if the shutdown was going to end, which we had no idea if it was going to, we still needed our staff available when we came back. So this is kind of doing that same thing for only a 10-day window, if I'm hearing correctly, to try to make sure that we have those employees so that if we're gone for 10 days, they're still there when we need them to come back. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
So I feel like as much as we may not want to spend, so if it's $150,000 a week, some might furlough, so they may not be in that number. We're looking at maybe less.
Or maybe more.
So it's going to be much less because most of our staff will be working. If we go
Yes.
virtual, they will be working.
Right.
They are needed in a variety of different positions. We mentioned food service, so we'll still be serving lunch. And we all know how many hours our food service staff put in last spring and into the summer providing meals for our students, not only our students, but any student in the community, private school, homeschool students could get lunches also. So the staff will be working. Our instructional assistants during a virtual, temporary virtual move also work. So the vast majority of our people are working. We will not need all of them for this temporary virtual, and that's what Susan is recommending here. So it's not going to be 150,
No.
150,000 a week.
Jeff?
So Tom, so I'm clear on the number, about the 150,000. That, am I correct in my assumption that that money is not above whatever has been budgeted already?
No, all that money's been budgeted already. The budget's created with one line per person that they're gonna work all 42 weeks of the academic year for whatever their allotment of hours is. So
So we're not taking an extra $150,000?
No, it's not that. This money's already been budgeted and earmarked, I'll use that word, it's been earmarked for this purpose. And as Sean said, that if there's a change to a virtual environment, that the food service staff will largely still be working, that our instructional assistants will largely still be working. Our buildings, even if they're not occupied fully, they still have pipes that can freeze and things that can go wrong, that our building managers and second shifters will still be needed to some capacity. Obviously, with not a full student body there, there's probably some less demand there. Wherever this goes, I think the point is that if something were to happen, and we're speaking hypotheticals now, not trying to set the table for anything here, but if something were to happen, we don't want to wait for the next school board meeting to talk about it, figure out what we want to do. We just want to have immediate communication to let people know where it's at, so that if they are furloughed or they choose a voluntary furlough, we can make those decisions immediately and not have to wait 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it might be. We just want to have the game plan in pocket and to hit that game plan if the time comes.
Any other discussion?
When you say less than 10%, put a number to it.
So support members, we probably have, 325? Be about right?
About 275, yeah.
275. So if we're able to put, all but 10% of that, you're looking at maybe?
Maybe 27.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So maybe 25 people, you're saying, that we might have to,
Yes.
that we're potentially looking at right now to give a 10-day buffer to.
And most likely, you're looking at part-time staff members.
And
So
it's
you're
a
looking at,
one-time payment.
correct.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Number 9, MASD air quality study.
Yeah, so at our finance committee meeting, Andy Wagner was with us here, and Andy's with us here now. So, we talked about this for some time right now in terms of improving our airflow in our buildings, not just for the current time or the current environment, but for throughout anything that might come up, not just COVID-19, but influenza. Andy, help me out. What's some other things that we're trying to attack here?
Well, yeah, influenza, MRSA, norovirus, anything of that nature. We could be looking to create a better environment for our school district year-round for the future. With the assessment that I've been doing since COVID started and through the school year, we've done a lot of things currently with our HVA system already to put us in a good spot. But to go and spend $400,000 on bipolar ionization or UV lighting, I don't have enough information to support that to bring to the board at this point without doing some type of survey for the district. Craig had brought up at the last finance facilities meeting as well that he felt we should be looking at a little bit more air quality monitoring in that capacity of an assessment. So that's where we're coming to you tonight, just to say we would like to put together a presentation using a vendor to give us a better recommendation of what we should be doing.
So currently we do, in our long-term capital plan, we do have a $400,000 earmarked for this particular investment to improve our HVAC systems, either through a UV light attachment or a bipolar ionization attachment. Andy's done a study here at Mukwonago High School in the South Gym locker rooms, and the results were good.
Yeah, that
there.
was part of the memo that was sent to you, and in that, it shows that using that bipolar ionization, it was attacking the viruses, or it was putting the ions in the positive and negative charge to attack viruses if they were in that space.
Given the magnitude of the investment, we want to make sure we're getting this thing right, so we're looking for your permission to do air study quality with some outside help so we can get their guidance and expertise on what we're doing here.
I will make a motion that we move forward with the air quality study.
Second.
And a second from Andy. Any other discussion or questions?
That's second.
Andy already took this.
Oh, darn it.
Sorry, fight for it. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
And then we'll move into unfinished business.
Well, it's me.
That's you, superintendent's report.
Yes, so first I want to point out that we do have a different schedule for board meetings in December. If I have my dates correctly, the board will meet on Monday, December 21st, and that's the third Monday. And so we'll have to take a look at our committee schedule, but I believe the Finance and Facility Committee will meet right before the board meeting, but we will touch base with you about that. So we'll plan on having student learning on the 7th, personnel on the 14th, and then the Finance and Facilities and board meetings on the 21st.
Can I say one thing here real quick? Is it time, can we excuse the 2 students perhaps? Is it getting,
Oh, yeah. it's
you guys
9,
enjoying
guys
this
go.
meeting here? How's it going?
Oh, ladies, when it's 9 o'clock, you can just wave and exit
Yep.
stage.
Yeah,
right.
Exit stage right.
we all got homework.
Thank
Go
you
get
so much
after
for
it.
being
Hey,
here,
thanks,
ladies.
ladies.
Thank you, ladies.
Happy Thanksgiving. Nice job on the report tonight.
Sorry to interrupt there.
Thank you, Tom.
And then the Personnel Committee wants to move forward with the superintendent evaluation. We're hoping that we can meet at 6 o'clock, the entire board, 6 o'clock on Monday, the 30th of November.
That is for
You know, it should take
Sean's
Should take us
review.
5 minutes.
Really,
That is next Monday at 6 PM at district office.
So I'll get back to you on the location because we'll want to be able to socially distance. So that's a board work session, so there will be no action items taken, no citizens' comments.
Okay.
And then my last item is that the legal firm for the Village of Mukwonago has requested we finalize a release of the restriction on a property that the district sold to the village, the property that right now holds the Mukwonago Community Library and also Washington Avenue Park. That release is getting a little more complicated than we hoped. And so I am getting legal counsel involved, and so I will get you more information as soon as I can. It's somewhat complex.
Okay, do you want to move right into legislation and correspondence?
I don't have any legislation, but I do want to make sure that we recognize the First Congregational Church, which has continued the Backpack Club at Clarendon Avenue Elementary. So the First Congregational Church and the Backpack Club sends home a backpack of food over the weekend to help families in need. And currently they are meeting the needs of 8 families, which is a total of 39 people. So every weekend they receive a backpack of food. And I wanted to make sure I mentioned, I keep looking out here, I don't see her anymore. So Janine Cooley, who is a retired fourth grade teacher from Clarendon, longtime teacher. Her husband, Russ Cooley, was longtime science teacher at Mukwonago High School, both now retired. Janine Cooley leads that effort, and she's also volunteering as usher tonight when you came in. So Janine and her husband, Russ, so we want to thank Janine and the First Congregational Church for the Backpack Club efforts at Clarendon. And then also congratulations to our football program, the boys volleyball program, girls tennis, and girls swim. All were awarded with the Classic 8 Sportsmanship Award for fall sports. And then so I don't believe there is a reason to go into executive session tonight, unless there are questions about the library issue. And as far as staff compensation, we do not have an answer from the union yet, so there is no need to go into executive session to discuss that.
Okay, then we'll just leave that as is and wrap up. If you don't, do you have anything else, Sean?
No.
Okay,
no.
then we will just wrap up with any board member questions, if there are any, that haven't yet been asked.
Well, actually, I do have one more thing. I'm sorry.
Go for it. Is it a
So-
middle schoolers create a green wall?
Not like he hasn't.
No, I just want to point out it's Tom Karthauser's 40th birthday
Why does he
today.
not have the glasses on? You're supposed to wear
Put those
them the whole
glasses
time.
on.
I'm old enough to be. your
Erica, these are
father.
the best thing I've gotten today.
Good, I'm glad.
So happy
I
birthday
almost
to
brought the
Tom.
light up pair, but I didn't think you'd wear them. Can we zoom in? Camera people? They're not by the camera, so no.
But thank you.
Downhill from here, Tom.
Just say it looks good from the top of the hill. Going down. All right. No final call for questions? Okay, then I will take a motion to adjourn.
I would like to make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, good night, everyone.